on this computer. Okay. All right, so we are recording. And just give me a thumbs up that everyone can still hear me. And wonderful, thanks, Jody. All right, so welcome to the Community and Business Preservation Program discussion here today. I am here to talk about, just give you more information about this program and some information on how to apply. Oh, and I don't know, give me a moment. All right, there we go. So the Community Business Preservation Program, the CBPP, is administered by the state of Colorado through their Office of Economic Development and International Trade. Sorry, that word did not get in there, international trade. And that's the website if you want to learn more about the grant program. It's a long one. But the CBPP provides grants as well as training and consultation support to groups of geographically proximate and culturally similar businesses that are facing destabilizing pressures and hold cultural, social, and historical significance in Colorado. So that's a lot of subjectivity and generality, which we will talk a little bit more about. But I know I've talked to both of you who are on the call today, and I think that both of your businesses fit these traits. Specifically, the grant provides $10,000 to $50,000 per business. It's pretty unique. This is not something you have to split. If Turquoise Raven Gallery needs $12,000 and the Zoo Gallery needs $49,000, if Cortez were to get this grant, those two businesses could get those separate amounts. It also provides tailored training and consultation for each of the businesses. So that is part of this program. If we are awarded a grant through the state, our businesses and the city would be required to do some kind of training. And that training we'll talk a little bit more about, but can last anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, depending on what the business needs. And then the sponsoring entity, that would be us, the city of Cortez, also gets $10,000 for helping administer the grant. So to apply for this grant, we need a cohort of businesses between 2 to 6. We need that sponsoring entity, which is the city of Cortez in this case. And then together we'd coordinate and submit a single application through a Google form. So the application that you guys were sent is exactly the application that the business is, the business portion of the application. So I can just copy paste and put it into Google form as we craft this community application. So that application includes the eligibility questions specifically for the community, the sponsoring entity, questions specifically for you guys, the businesses, and then some additional materials. So you will need to submit certificates of good standing, letters of support, and then spreadsheet, and then some logistical information. Just a side note, the letters of support are not per business. They're actually, so I'm going to be working on that, getting letters of support for the group as a whole. So these would be letters probably from the city council, the Cortez Retail Enhancement Board, Mesa Verde Country Board, the Cortez Chamber, county commissioners, things like that. So you guys don't need to worry about getting letters of support. So just to reiterate that program structure, the entire state of Colorado is invited to apply. OEDIT, Office of Economic Development and International Trade, will choose 5 to 7 communities throughout the state of Colorado. So not necessarily there, this is just to give you kind of a visual. And then in those 5 to 7 communities, 2 to 6 businesses within each community will finally get that funding and that training and consultation. So it is a highly competitive grant. And then, so what we are tasked with doing here at the city of Cortez is collecting your applications, but we can only submit 6 applications to the state, 6 businesses total. So we will need to figure out if we get more than 6, we would need to distill that down to 6 applications. And we are going to look for the most competitive businesses, the applicants that we believe have the highest opportunity for success. And then we distill those applications down into one final community application. So eligibility, and you can see here the eligibility for the sponsoring entity, that's us. I'm not going to go into much detail about it because we know we qualify, we're good. So you guys can be rest assured there. We are the fiscal agent component for this application. So this is not something that directly benefits the city. We are just helping administer this grant if we were to win, to really support you guys as a business. So to be eligible for a business, you need to be in good standing with the Colorado Secretary of State and submit a letter proving that, your letter of good standing. You also have to have your primary business location in Colorado, not be a franchise, and then must have been fully operational on or prior to September 22nd, 2021. And this is where I need a little bit more clarification from the state. Unless you are restarting or revamping a business that was in existence prior to September 22, 2021. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. You remember that the state requires geographically similar. For us, we decided that means that you have a primary business location within the city limits of Cortez, have a current sales tax license that was opened prior to September 22nd, 2021, unless you had a business before and you were renewing that to restart a new business, maybe under a new name. Things like that. We will talk to individual businesses about that and work with the state to see if that business qualifies. Other factors, and these are not, it's important to note that these are not required by the state, but as the city of Cortez crafts a culturally, historically significant group of businesses, we want to focus, so we're prioritizing our retail for-profit businesses, businesses that sell primarily locally goods, and then businesses that cater to outdoor recreation, tourism, creative arts. Again, these are kind of loosely, there's a little bit of wiggle room around those, but those are the businesses we really want to highlight here at the City of Cortez for this grant. So many people are eligible, right? Any of our clothing stores, our boutique mercantile stores, art galleries, outdoor recreation retailers, grocery stores, again, not franchises, bookstores. Just remember, you have to be within the city limits, not be a franchise or a chain, have a current sales tax, and have opened your business prior to September 22nd, 2021. Just as a reminder, this is a highly competitive grant that the entire state is potentially going for. But the good news is that the state has said they will give priority to businesses in one of these zones. So hub zones, tier 1 coal transition communities, rural jumpstart communities, enterprise zones, and opportunity zones. Cortez, Colorado happens to be located in 3 of those zones. So we meet 3 out of those 5 geographic preferences. So we're hoping that helps our application. Now let's talk a little bit about the allowable uses of funds. So you have up to $50,000 that you could apply for. What can that $50,000 be used for? It has to be one-time expenses, so it cannot be everyday operating expenses. So things like infrastructure and facade improvements, any new technology you need, maybe a QuickBooks account, any kind of technology services like that as well. Maybe a new computer, energy efficient upgrades count, building code upgrades, permitting and licensing fees, and hired contract work are all some of those eligible expenses. Ineligible uses of fund are, again, everyday operational costs such as wages and salaries. You cannot spend the funding on food or alcohol or marijuana. You cannot spend it on charitable or political contributions, debt payments, gifts, donations, sponsorships, late fees, or employee bonuses. Just to go back to those eligible grant funds, permitting and licensing fees, if you are thinking about doing a pretty significant build out in your business, talk to our department about what a building permit would cost. You could add that into the grant fee for a building permit. In some instances, and I would need to work with the business if you're interested in applying for this, but OEDIT may approve operational costs or recurring expenses. Please talk to me if you have a special situation, because I would need to talk to the state and determine how they are deciding if they will fund that kind of expense. And then finally, just a reminder, all physical improvements must follow City of Cortez land use code and ordinance. and they need to be pre-approved by the property owner. So if you do not own your building that your business is located in, we don't need a letter of approval from your property owner at this point, but please just double check with them, make sure they know you're applying for this grant, let them know what kind of improvements you're thinking, and make sure that they're okay with that. The state is going to use these 3 bullet points as criteria for judging our applications. So how is the applicant's community, location, and offerings culturally, socially, and/or historically significant? How does each of the applicant's businesses contribute to that community's cultural, social, or historical significance? And what destabilizing pressures do the businesses and the community face that may threaten the cultural legacy of the community? So as we look through your applications, as we determine which businesses will bring forward for this grant, we are going to use that same criteria here at the City of Cortez. I'm going to pause for just a second. Any questions so far? Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to the application. So you guys might have seen this already. Section 1 is all about logistics. And again, this is your portion of the application, the business's portion of the application. The city's looks very similar with a little bit more big picture. So you can really focus on your business and what your needs are and what you see as your cultural, historical significance to our community. So fill out the business name, address, the primary contract, and we also need that email address. Then there's a couple things that you need to attach or initial saying approval of. So the first one is you need to provide certificates of good standing from the Colorado Secretary of State. And you can just attach that as an email attachment when you turn in your application. You also need to initial saying that you certify that your business has never been adjudicated to be in violation of any federal, state, or local laws affecting the health, safety, or working conditions of employees for at least the prior 5 years. And you certify that if awarded, your business will abide by the conditions of funded, provided under the conditions of funding section of the web page. Then you will also need to initial that your business is not a franchise, that your primary location is the state of Colorado within the city limits of Cortez, and that your business was fully operational on or prior to September 22nd, 2021. This can include the restarting or revamping of a business that is in existence prior to September 22, 2021. Then into the actual questions. So only the first 3 questions that we will go over are actually rated on the application. The rest are kind of logistic questions. So these first 3 are very important. So number 1, describe your business in 1 to 3 paragraphs, including a mission statement if you have one, and then define in your own terms the community served by the business. Information about the community served may include information about the residents that are served by your business and any socioeconomic factors relative to those residents. Please do not go beyond 3 paragraphs. One of the important things when writing grants is to keep things very succinct. The state of Colorado is going to have a lot of grants to read, so we want to keep things as tight and succinct as possible. Question number 2, describe in again 1 to 3 paragraphs in your own terms the cultural, social, and/or historical significance of your business and the economic impact of that significance to the community overall. The economic impact should be specific to your business and may include, but is not limited to, jobs, sales tax revenue, visitation, services, etc. And in describing the cultural significance of your business, include details about the products and services that you offer the community that you serve or strive to serve with your business, and what unique role or need is fulfilled by your business. And then question 3, this is the last of the questions that are going to be rated by the state. Describe in 1 to 3 paragraphs in your own terms any specific financial insecurities or destabilizing pressures impacting your business's success and economic viability. This could include specific examples of the destabilizing pressures described by the sponsoring entity in Section 3 or other more individual financial hardships specific to your business. In your application, you don't need to worry about Cortez as a whole. I am going to be looking at these applications and crafting a community application that fits our community. I may add specific instances that we see here at the City of Cortez, but you can really focus on your own business here. You don't need to worry about what the rest of the community is going through at the moment. Now, these questions are the logistical questions, so they're not rated by the state. Request an amount of grant funds between $10,000 and $50,000. This is just a number. You don't need to write anything. You just pick your number. And then number 5, you'll need to actually list out how much will be spent on each of the on those uses. So maybe, you know, for renovations, you've got $5,000, and for new lighting features, you've got a $2,000. So you need to list that out pretty specifically. In this question 5, be specific as possible. You do not need to have an even number. Nice $12,000. You can have $12,062. Be as specific as you can. Yeah, okay. Question 6 is describing the impact that receiving the funds for your proposed uses would have on the long-term viability of your businesses. So why do you need this money? If the working capital or use of recurring expenses is necessary, this is where you'll explain why you would need that. Please let me know if you plan to ask for working capital. I will want to double check that with the state. And then question 7 is to explain whether your request is scalable. So in this instance, in number 7, the state is asking for if your community was not given the full amount of money that you requested, how much money could you use? So if you ask for $50,000, and I see your question, Jody, I'll go back to that. If you ask for $50,000 and the state decides not to give you $50,000, but gives you 48, what would you do, right? So if your business were to receive less funding than requested, what proposed uses would you prioritize, and how do you think it would affect the overall impact of the award? So thinking about that. In question number 2, let's go back to question number 2 real quick. So Jody asks, in question number 2, include the actual numbers. I would say that's a great question. I will follow up with the state, and I see Rachel has her hand raised. My instinct, Jody, is to say if the numbers describe, if the specific numbers of sales tax revenue are important, then yes. Otherwise, you can probably generalize it, but I am going to let Rachel talk.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Helen, on the answer to that question. I mean, if it helps illustrate, I mean, it can be very helpful to have some numbers or percentages to help really tell your story in a, like Helen mentioned, a succinct way that, you know, what's the significance to the community overall. So if you need a little bit of help with those numbers, you know, the census actually provides some really good information, and we might have some other data here that might be helpful. And then I did have one other comment, Helen, when you're ready.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so my other comment was on the estimates of the amount that you're asking for. So I would say, you know, you want to try to be as accurate as possible. Like, you know, sometimes you don't know for sure until you dig into it. But if you're looking at, you know, refurbishing your building or facade or something like that, try to go to a builder and say, can you give me an estimate on this? Because I don't know about this part in particular, Helen, as far as what we submit to the state, but you can't you can't go over the amount typically that you ask for. And also typically in grants like this, they require bids. And so if you have a contractor that, or if you estimate like, oh, I think it'll cost this much to replace my windows, and then as it turns out, it costs way more or way less, like we have to show the state actual bids from actual contractors.
Thank you. That's a good clarification, Rachel. So get as close of an estimate as you can. And if you need help with that too, you can always reach out to us. We can help as we are able. So 2 more questions on the application. Number 8 is to provide your business's most recent annual gross revenue. And again, this is just a number. You do not need to explain it, just a quick number. And then describe in 1 to 2 paragraphs potential areas of training and consultation support that you believe your business may benefit from. This could include, but is not limited to, business plan development, marketing, sales, manufacturing, technology, legal, finance and accounting, human resources, staffing, packaging, innovation, etc. So now, some dates. So we are asking for your applications to be submitted to the City of Cortez by January 3rd, 2024. We will check those out and we will give our businesses notification of acceptance between January 8th and 12th of 2024. Our community application is due to the state on January 19th, 2024. So if you are one of the businesses selected to move forward with this grant, I may be reaching out to you after the 8th-ish to help coordinate that. But once you submit your application on January 3rd, we shouldn't need too much from you. So don't worry, it's after January 3rd, it's not a heavy lift. And then notifications of awards will be in March 2024 with distribution of funds from the April 2024 through April 2026. That is the same time period that they will have training. And in the application, you saw that training, and I haven't got great answers for you on exactly what the state is planning for that training, but it could be everything from one-on-one consultation to webinars, to specific training that is organized for all the businesses participating in this grant. I can imagine they would coordinate with SBDC, maybe get someone to come to Cortez and do a community-wide training, things like that. And again, that training is anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, depending on what the business and the community needs. So again, this is my email and my phone number. So this is a direct phone number to my office, 970-331-0213. And then my email, hwest@cortezco.gov. I will also be hanging out at the Cortez Chamber of Commerce next week on Monday and Tuesday, from the times that are right there, so that I can be more readily available to our businesses. If you want to just come in and sit down next to me and work on an application, cool. If you want to send me an application to read and we can go over it together, cool. But I want it to be available for you guys if you need some extra help. So Monday, December 18th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. I'll be sitting in the chamber. On Tuesday, it's in the afternoon, so I'll be there from 12 to 4 p.m. just hanging out for you guys if you need. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Questions?
This might be a dumb question. The 2-year window, that's the funds have to just be used within that 2 years, or they're distributed?
That is a great question. I will find out from the state because I was a little confused by that as well.
Okay,
That's a really good question, Jody. I'm surprised I didn't think of it.
I'm gonna guess that they need to be expended and the grant needs to be completed by then, but yeah, it's good to double check.
I'll let you know. I also, before I end the recording, want to share with you guys the conditions of funding. And we didn't talk too much about this, but down here at the very bottom are that conditions of funding. So you need to be transparent. You need to agree to go to some training and consultation. The tracking of metrics and reporting, that is where I will come in. If we do get this grant, I will help you with that. The City Hall will help you with that. You also, this tab, Small Business Reliance Index. I'm not sure what that is, but I will find out more about that. We've got final reporting, and then of course those use of funds. So it does say that if you want to use the funds in a different way, you must discuss that proposal with OEdit beforehand.
And Helen,
Mhm.
I think we were talking about this a little bit, but so if a business wanted to do some work on their building once again, or replace some computers or something like that, the money has to go to a contractor, correct? It can't go, like the business can't do their own work and then pay themselves for that, right?
That is correct. So it does have to be, you can pay for supplies and materials. So if you wanted to paint a mural on your building and you were going to do it yourself, you can buy those supplies and materials for the grant, but you cannot pay for your own time. You can contract out work.
And then the other thing, I believe this grant is reimbursable, correct? So the expense has to be, is this, typically, this is how it would work with an OEdit grant or a DOLA grant, is that you spend the money, submit your receipts and proof of payment, and then they will reimburse the city, and then the city will have to reimburse you. Is that correct, Helen? Do you know?
I don't actually know, but that's another one I can definitely find out for us, because that's a good question. I almost want to say, I don't know. I almost want to say that they were possibly going to
Fund it up front.
fund it
Okay.
up front.
Okay.
Because it's supposed to help businesses that might be facing destabilizing pressures. So I don't know how they're doing that, but I will definitely double check.
Okay.
That's a great question because most small businesses don't have that kind of money up front.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And oftentimes these grants are reimbursable, but sometimes I've seen in the past that OEdit and DOLA has made some exceptions. So good to know ahead of time.
Yeah, and I will find out. It does say, where did I just find it? It does say that the sponsoring entity, so the city must be able to serve as the fiscal agent to distribute funds. So I don't know if, yeah, I'll find that out though. About reimbursable. Other questions? Cool, well, I'm gonna, oh, go ahead.
I have just a quick one. So you'll be wordsmithing whatever we submit? Or what submits
No, the
Oh,
plan is
okay.
to submit, if I change your application, that's a good question. I will double check with you before submitting it to the state. On the Google Doc, the way the Google Doc works is that it has a section that I fill out for the community, and I write some grandiose topics about our community as a whole. And then it goes through and it has Jody Jarling's business grant, and it has the exact answers that you wrote. And then it goes to Erin at Merriweather's business grant and hers exact answer. And then Mary at Turquoise Raven. So I will not change your application unless I ask you first. I may use your words to inform our community application, and I might steal a couple little tidbits that I like, but I will not change your direct application. Good question. Any other questions? Well, I'm going to stop the recording here.